Welcome. This is the New Covenant Church Abuja Main. We're sure that God has ordered your steps, and so we're glad to have you fellowship with us. We trust that God's thoughts will be revealed to you as you listen. Let's get right into it.
Reign in me, awesome ruler. I can make it on my own. You're the potter, I am clay. Oh Lord, mold me, make me as you choose. I'm depending on your word, oh Lord. Work in me to will and do. Yeah, reign on me, awesome ruler. I can't make it on my own. Reign in me, oh God, awesome ruler. I can't make it on my own.
We have looked at the rod of Moses, which turned to be the rod of God. We have seen the sling of David become the sling of God. The interesting thing about these two items in the hands of Moses and David respectively is that they produced victory. The rod and the sling produced victory. Victory for Israel. Not victory for them, not victory for their household, not victory for their friends, victory for the nation of Israel. We'll look at other examples in the Bible of where God used what people had in their hands and the meaning. The widow of Zarephath. We can read this in 1 Kings chapter 17, verses 8 to 16. 1 Kings chapter 17, verses 8 to 16. The widow of Zarephath. Elijah proclaims a drought or famine in Israel, and it lasted for 3.5 years. After proclaiming the drought in Israel, the Lord directed him to Zarephath, to a widow, and that the widow would provide for him. Indeed, he went to Zarephath, and at the city gate, he met the widow. The widow was gathering sticks to prepare the last meal for herself and her son, and they will wait for God knows how many days and die. That was the intention. So the intention was that the widow and her son were preparing the last meal to eat and wait for death to come. But here comes Elijah. Elijah steps in to ask for water. He asked for water first. The widow gave him water. Then he asked for food. I'm sure what must have gone on in the widow's mind was that, if you say you are a prophet, are you not discerning enough to know that I'm a widow? And this meal is the last that we want to have and wait for death to come. But thank God, the widow obeyed. She prepared the cake for Elijah. And what happened? The bin of flour, Elijah had told her that, look, that's your last meal. The bin of flour and the bin of flour will not be used up. And the jar of oil will not run dry. I'm sure she just took it up. Well, it's a prophet talking. So what was the result? The result was that the bin of flour of the widow and the jar of oil, which she surrendered, became inexhaustible. You can imagine. You have Gary that will feed gari and soup that you just want to eat, widow, to eat, and your son. And the man of God comes and says, no, that food, well, as it were, God has need of this food. So that was, as it were, what Elijah told the widow. But what happened? We know the story. The bin of flour and the jar of oil became inexhaustible, and they fed on it throughout the period of the drought. Amazing things happen when we surrender what is in our hand to the Lord. Amazing things happen. We know the story of the boy with the 5 loaves and 2 fishes in John chapter 6, verses 5 to 13. John chapter 6, verses 5 to 13. Jesus had ministered to them. He had ministered to the multitude. And he imagined that these people will faint on their way. So they said, and the disciples told him, we don't have the kind of resources to feed these people. So he said they should look around what they had. There was this little boy with 5 barley loaves and 2 small fish. I wonder, the Bible could have said 5 loaves of bread, but he said 5 barley loaves. That means the boy did not have, he wasn't from a rich background, because bread made from barley loaves were low quality. So the Bible qualified it. So it wasn't about wealth, about what, but it was just about the heart of the boy. The boy must have had a good upbringing. And why do I say that? Rather than play with his friends, he decided to stay with Jesus, to listen to the sermon. I'm not sure he really comprehended the message, but it was just a place to be. Who said it? David was at the right place, at the right time, with the right people, doing the right things. These are the things that make what God has put in your hands to do extraordinary things. The boy was where he was meant to be. He wasn't playing. He did not nibble the meal. He did not bite. It was not taken in bits and pieces as Jesus was teaching. Because if he had, I'm not sure he would still have the lunch pack as intact as his mother packed it. The boy was willing and ready to not only share, but let go. He didn't say, no. You these disciples, what? Is it because you are disciples? What I can give you is half fish and 1 loaf. My mother packed this thing. As old as you people are, couldn't you have packed lunch? You didn't pack lunch now. But the boy was willing to not only share, but he let go of everything. Some of us would have reasoned, what's my business with you people? Half fish, 1 loaf of bread. If you people were not organized enough to sort yourselves, that's your cup of tea. The times that we are in are trying times. We've been in lockdown. We're in lockdown for like 5 weeks. We're just coming out of it, and it's even gradual easing. So, most of us don't have enough food to eat. Talk less of sharing with our neighbors. Same situation that the multitude were in the desert. There is nothing that we're going through that is not in the Bible. In spite of this lockdown, are we ready to share the things that we have? This lockdown has given a lot of us good excuse not to give offering. That we are not going to church now. I can tell you some people have been incredibly, that's the way I would describe it. Some people have been incredibly awesome with being extremely faithful in consistent giving. Despite this lockdown. Their Sunday offering, they don't miss it. They are tithe, they have not missed it all through this period. And I believe God is blessing them, because if God is not blessing them with what they are doing, they will not have more to give. This quality, the quality of the boy being willing to give, to share, and let go, made him offer his meal to the disciples. And what happened? The meal of, I'm not sure the boy will be more than 12 years old. The meal of a 12-year-old, how big can it be? Fed 5,000 men. They didn't count women and children. It fed 5,000 men. And they had 12 fragments left. 12 baskets, of the fragments, the ones that they picked. He filled 12 baskets. Amazing things happen when we surrender what is in our hand to the Lord. The woman with the alabaster oil, Matthew 26, 6-13. She broke her alabaster flask of costly, very costly, that's how the Bible described it, very costly, fragrant oil. The culture of the Jews is that girls, they have alabaster flask. Every small money that they give them, they usually give them money maybe during Passover or during some of those Jewish festivals and feasts. What they do is they top up the flask of alabaster oil with the intention of breaking it on their marriage night. The first night, the day they get to their husband's house when they get married. The intention is to break it before they start conjugal things. So she broke it and used it to anoint Jesus in preparation for his burial. And what happened? What was the result? The result was that the Bible said that anywhere that the gospel is preached, what that woman did would be mentioned as a memorial to her. Amazing things happen when we surrender what is in our hand to the Lord. The widow's mite. Luke 21, verses 1-4. The widow's mite, Jesus observed the widow's mite on his last visit to the temple. It was his last visit to the temple before his crucifixion. And somehow he sat where the offerings were being given and noted a woman, a widow that put in 2 mites. 2 mites was like the least. It was so small that, they could have told her, why did you waste your energy to come and give this type of money? But it wasn't worth your while. But what did Jesus note? That she has put in more than every other person. Why? Others gave out of abundance. That means maybe some people were blessed with 1 billion naira. What they gave to church was 10,000 naira. But this woman was blessed, or her labor gave her 200 naira. And she gave the 200 naira to the treasury. That is how I can explain what happened. She gave all her livelihood that she had out of her poverty. Jesus rewarded her giving because Jesus mentioned her. It was mentioned in the Bible. There are so many things that the Bible recorded, that there are so many things that happen that if they write it, that the books in the world cannot contain it. So for what she did to have found a place in the Bible, it made meaning. I said the first 2 examples that we saw, the rod of Moses turned rod of God, the sling of David turned sling of God, they caused victories. They made Israel victorious. The flour and the oil in the hand of the widow of Zarephath, and the loaves of bread and fish in the hand of the boy were multiplied. It wasn't victory. It wasn't battle. They were multiplied. They became inexhaustible. The widow of Zarephath's flour and oil became inexhaustible. The boys' loaves and fish too. I'm sure the disciples will be wondering, is it not 5 loaves and 2 fish that we are just distributing? And the thing is not finishing. It's not finishing. So God multiplied in these situations. In the situation of the woman with the alabaster jar and the widow with the 2 mites, what was their result? The result, what happened? What happened in their situation was that their names were mentioned as a memorial. Their acts gave them prominence. Their act, what they did, gave them a space in the Bible. My prayer is that we will give what we have to God so that what will be left will be inexhaustible. Amen. Also, my prayer is that we will do acts that will make our names to be written in the book of life. Amen. Not as a monument here on earth, but that our names will be written in the book of life. Amen. What is it that you have in your hand that you are holding tightly to? Some of us are holding so tight to what we have that it has become a problem. In fact, they have become liabilities. Status, achievement, royalty. Saul was so obsessed with the kingdom that he was so envious of David that he couldn't bring him to become a part of the army of Israel. That is what happens when you have something and it becomes an obsession. Some of us, our wealth have become liabilities. Wealth is meant to be assets, but they have become liabilities. The rich young ruler in Matthew 19, 16 to 22, Matthew 19, 16 to 22, he came to Jesus and said, what should I do to inherit eternal life? Jesus told him, go and sell all that you have and give to the poor, and you have treasure in heaven. He went home sad. His wealth had become an obsession and become a liability that he couldn't give. Look at the widow with the 2 mites. The widow's name was recorded in a glorious manner. The name of this rich young ruler was recorded in an undignified manner. Your will. God has given us our will, a free will to decide. That was why the Bible says that God created man in his own image, after his own likeness. So the idea is that our will be in accordance with the will of God. But what have we done with it? Our will, our free will, the free will that God gave us, it has become a liability. The free will was to enable us to take decisions to glorify his name. But what do we see? In Genesis 6:5, the Bible recorded that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and every intent of his thoughts was evil continually. Some of us, it's time before this lockdown. I don't have time for God. I don't have time for, I don't have time. Bible study, I don't have time. Sunday service, I don't have time. Fasting and prayer, I don't have time, I'm busy. What are you doing with your time now? No time for prayer. Even in the morning, you can't pray. In the evening, you'll be too tired. In the morning, you are rushing out. In the evening, you are tired. COVID-19 has taken away all the things that we use as excuse not to serve God. So who do you want to tell during the lockdown that you are busy? God, you tell God, and you tell people that God understands. So now that you are not doing anything, who will understand your plight? Whatever it is in your hand, it could be of immense value or worthless to you. You can't get value from anything that God has placed in your hands by yourself. The value of whatever it is that God has placed in your hand derives that value from God, from you surrendering it to God and God making use of it. And we have seen from these examples, God is not limited by age, young or old. The boy with the 5 loaves, he wasn't an adult. And I wonder, does it mean that no adult had a packed lunch that day in that multitude? The young boy did not have experience that when you share, you won't have. But the old people, they had experience that once you share, you won't have. Or that is what is in their mind. You know, I find something interesting during this lockdown period. And it ministered a great deal to me. When Jesus said that, unless you have the heart of a young child, of a babe, of children, you will not inherit the kingdom of God. I noticed something. An adult and a little kid had issues. The little kid has moved on, because the next minute, the little kid wants to play with the adult. But the adult just shrugged the little kid off. That ministered to me that God helped me to have the heart of a little kid. Because if you just offend me, naturally, I withdraw, or you will withdraw. Experience. God is not limited by experience. I mean, I won't belabor that. Abner, the commander of the army, could not defeat the Philistines. It was somebody that didn't have experience in war. They didn't know that God had trained him in what was more than war. People don't need to know what God has done in you. The type of the weapon. God is not limited by the type of the weapon. The armor of Saul did not work for David. And the armor of Goliath did not work for Goliath in the day of God's power. So in the day of God's power, it is what he has put in your hand that will work. God used a stone that is not a weapon of war. So that's what I'm saying. It's not the type of weapon that you have, or the type of competencies, or the type of experience, or the type of capability. In the day of his power, the people will be willing. God does not look at your financial status. He doesn't look at your seeming inability. Gideon said he was from the least tribe in Israel, but God said he was a mighty man of valor. And God used 300 men. They started with about 32,000 men. 32,000 men of Israel wanted to go to war. He said, those who are fearful, 22,000 left. Then he told them to drink water. It remained 300 people. Those 300 people were the ones that went to battle to defeat the Midianites. So it's not by number or your inability. God is not limited by all those things. God uses the ordinary things, but with a surrendered heart, with a willing spirit to do extraordinary things. What do you have in your hand? Release it to God willingly and cheerfully. Because God gave it to you and knows how to derive value from it. God will not ask you to do what you cannot do. And in rounding up, God uses ordinary things to do extraordinary things as we allow him to take charge of what he has put in our hands. My prayer, my desire, and my plea, if I should add that, is that we should let God have his way in our lives. Let him have whatever it is that is in our hands. Let us surrender it to him. Let us give it to him. He created it. He created us. He knows the reason why he gave you. And it's only him that can derive optimal and maximum value from what he has placed in our hands.
On my road. You're the potter, I am clay, oh Lord. Mold me, make me as you choose. I'm depending on your word, oh Lord. Walk in me to will and do. Reign on me, awesome ruler. Lord, I can make it on my own. Sing, reign in me, awesome ruler, awesome ruler. I can't make it, I can make it on my own. I can make it, Lord.
We do hope you were blessed by the message. Kindly make it a date with us next Sunday at 9 a.m. We will be waiting to have you. Thank you and stay blessed.